Welcome back to the equations unit. Today we're going to be talking about variables on both sides. There are two parts to this video. This is part 2, so if you haven't watched part 1, you want to go ahead and do that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started right now. Welcome back to solving equations with variables on both sides. This is part 2 of solving equations with variables on both sides. If you haven't watched part 1, you want to go ahead and do that first. Otherwise, if you have, let's go ahead and get started right now. Reminder before we begin, before we start solving an equation, we must simplify on both sides of the equation separately. We can only combine like terms on one side of the equation or the other. We can't combine them over both. Just like last time, we had to take care of one variable and move it to the other side. We're going to have that same situation here. But before we do that, we're going to have to make sure that everything is simplified completely separately. So let's go ahead and take a look at example A. So here we go. It says, what value of x makes the equation true? So I've got 3x plus 4 minus 5 plus 12x on one side and negative 2x plus 13 plus 3x on the other side. So again, I've got lots of variables. I got 4 variables. Granted, they're all the same variables, but there are still 4 of them. So before I begin using variables on both sides of the equation, I have to simplify on both sides of the equation separately before I begin. So let's go ahead and do that now. Now, when combining like terms, you could make that handy chart where you have x's on one side, constants on the other. I'm going to be able to probably combine like terms without that chart, but if you need that chart, you go ahead. So on the left-hand side of my equation, I have 3x and 12x, so that's going to combine to 15x. Positive 4 and negative 5 are going to combine to negative 1. Now again, if you don't know your integer rules with that positive and negative there, make sure that you're using your calculator. Again, if you need your calculator for 12 plus 3, who am I to judge? Make sure that you use your math tools that are available to you. On the right side of the equation, I got negative 2x plus 13 plus 3x. So the negative 2x and the 3x are going to combine to just give me 1x. I don't have to write the 1. If I have just 1x, I can just put x. And the positive 13 doesn't have any constants to combine with, so it's going to just be positive 13. So now I've got an equation with variables on both sides. I've got 15x on one side and then 1x on the other. So I just have to pick one of them to move. I'm going to go ahead and move the single x. That's a lot easier than trying to move 15 and getting a negative coefficient. So I'm going to subtract 1x from both sides. Remember, drawing a line to separate my steps. 15 minus 1 is going to give me 14x. Bring down my minus 1. Bring down my positive 13 because I haven't done anything with that. So now I've got just a two-step equation. Even though that looked like a big mess at the beginning, I just have a two-step equation now. So I'm going to ahead and add 1 to both sides to get rid of my constant. Negative 1 and positive 1 are going to cancel out. Bring down my 14x. 13 plus 1 is going to give me 14. And now I just have to get rid of my coefficient by dividing both sides on 14, since that is the inverse operation. And x is going to give me 14 divided by 14 is 1. So make sure that you circle your answer there. So even after all of that work, I was able to just get it down to a two-step equation after I moved my variable from one side. Let's go ahead and take a look at example B. So here in example B, it says what value makes the equation true? And it looks like I have to simplify on one side of my equation, and it looks like I have to simplify using that pesky friend, the distributive property. So I'm going to have to distribute to one side of the equation in order to clean this up. So I'm going to be distributing the negative 4 to the n and the negative 4 to the negative 5. So I'm going to bring down my n on the left because I didn't do anything with that. Negative 4 times positive 1n is going to give me negative 4n. Negative 4 times negative 5 is going to give me positive 20. Again, remember to keep track of those signs and use that calculator if you're not sure on those integer rules. So now I've got equations on both or variables on both sides. I'm going to get rid of the positive or the negative 4n because I need to get the constant on one side and the coefficient on the other. So I'm going to add 4n to both sides. When I do that, the negative 4n and the positive 4n are going to cancel. 4 plus 1 is 5n. Bring down my positive 20. And now I've got just a simple one-step equation. I'm going to divide both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So n equals 4. That is the end of that problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at example C. So here we are at example C, and it says what value of p makes the equation true? And oh boy, I have combining like terms on one side and the distributive property on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my wall because I want to make sure that I keep these things separated. And it doesn't matter which side I start with, combining like terms or distributive property. I'm going to start on the left just because I like to work left to right. I've got a negative sign outside my parentheses there, but I don't see any number. So anytime I just see a negative sign with no number outside, I know that's going to be a -1. So I'm going to put a -1 right there. Then I'm going to distribute that -1 inside to both problems in there. So I'm going to distribute my -1 to positive 3p, which is going to give me -3p. And then -1 times -2. Remember, I'm going to keep my signs. Negative, negative are going to make a positive 2p. So I've got that side done. Oh, but I do not, because p's are going to be the same type of thing, so I have to combine like terms. So -3p and positive 2p are going to give me just one -p, so I can put -p. Then I've got to go to the other side of the equation where I've got 6p and 10p that are going to combine. 6 plus 10 is 16. So I end up with 16p. The positive 4 can't combine with anything, so I'm going to just bring it down. So now I've got two p's, one on each side of the equation. So let's figure out which thing I'm going to move. Now, ordinarily, I would get rid of that negative p so that I had a positive coefficient. But if I do that, I'm going to end up with 0 one side, and then I'm going to have to move the 4 and then divide. So it's going to be a lot trickier to do that. Instead of doing that, I'm going to get rid of the 16p so that I have constants on one side, variables on the other. So I'm going to subtract 16p from one side, subtract 16p from the other side, draw my line to separate my step. 16 and -16 are going to cancel. Bring down my positive 4. -1p and -16p are going to give me -17p. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. So now I'm left with -17 and 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by -17. I'm going to end up with a fraction answer, so that's okay. P is going to equal -4/17. Again, fractions are okay. Fractions are a part of us. Let's go ahead and take a look at practice number 1. So here we are at practice problem number 1. It says, what is the solution to this equation? You're going to try and find that solution on your own. Go ahead and pause the video now, do the best that you can, and then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get the same answer that I got? Hopefully you did, -2m. If you didn't, go ahead and take a look back through my work to figure out where you may have made your mistake. If you got it correct, great. And let's go on to practice problem number 2. Here we are at practice problem number 2. It says, what makes the value of p? Unfortunately, this problem has an x in it, so let's go ahead and talk about which value of x makes the equation true. I want you to try this one on your own, do the best that you can, pause the video now, and then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get the same answer that I got? Hopefully you got x equals 0. If not, go ahead and take a look back through my work to see where you may have made your mistake. That brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and smack that like button. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up, and we will catch you in the next one.